Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Oh, well, see, that's where I get confused. Because
I
back
know.
channel turns into front channel.
You're
Next thing I know,
you're a front channel.
next thing I know, everything is fair game. So I was just like, okay.
I have a little throat thing tonight, so I hope I don't cough up anything.
It's better than a
throat.
big throat thing.
Yeah, it's just a wee throat thing. How are you, Andrew?
I'm good. Good.
You seem
Yeah,
a little.
I
You,
think
you seem a little stressed.
I'm taking deep breaths, feeling better.
Yeah,
It's
that's good.
all gonna be okay.
Do you have a tough week at work? Man,
Nah.
I had a tough week at work. Woo, doozy.
Yeah.
Do you get one of those things, when you're a creative professional and you screw up as a freelancer?
That
Hate
is not
that.
good. Yeah.
This is a big movie week for me, big editing week. Big editing. I totally nerded out on Final Cut. Love Final Cut.
It's you haven't switched over to Premiere yet, huh?
Ain't gonna happen, my friend.
Everyone's making the switch?
No. It's a temporary thing.
it's a
Pendulum
big
swings the
industry
other
thing.
way.
Uh-huh.
Whatever. You're an industry thing. So welcome to the next reel, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You'll notice as you're listening to this sometime, not now, that we're not live. Go ahead and parse that. A little bit of transcendental timekeeping. We're not live this week, and we're going to be kind of off the live thing for just a little bit while we figure out whether or not we want to pay for a live stream.
Yes.
So stand by on that. But thanks for those of you, thanks to those of us and those of you who joined the live show and actually hit our cap. So that was cool.
Yeah.
It was a modest cap.
but it felt good hitting
But you
the
hit
cap.
it. You hit it. It's a very exclusive live chat or live room. So there you go. But you can find out a lot about us at thenextreel.com/contact, where you can find out all the Twitter and all the Twitter and contact and email and phone details. Please, we encourage you to do so and give us a ring. We'll play your voicemail on the air. Also, head over to iTunes. That is a great place, a really terrific place to find the show and subscribe for free. You can get the next reel for free every single week and not miss a single episode of movie goodness. So we encourage you to do that. And leave us a review if you don't mind, because those 5-star reviews help. They have this whole cockamamie thing. It's a whole algorithm, I think they call them, where, the more people who give the nice reviews and the 5 stars, the more people who've never heard of the show will actually see that review when they search for things like movies. And we sure would like you to help us introduce them. You're like a matchmaker is what you are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move on.
And if you do leave us a comment, we'll read it on the air, and we promise not to sing Matchmaker.
I can't. I would never in a million years, I would not make that promise.
Oh,
Are you out of your...
Oh, sorry.
You are
guess you're
nuts.
Right.
Off your gourd.
I forgot who I was talking to.
I want to talk about summer. Can we talk about summer a little bit?
Yeah, summer from Serenity.
Summer Glau. Wow, I could talk about her all night and day. Crazy kung fu summer.
But not that summer.
Nope, we're gonna talk about summer movies. We got a question. I got a question on the Facebook from a dear friend of the show, Amy. From she's in one of the where is she? She's in not Chicago, but it's outside of Chicago in Illinois. Amy from Peoria on the line, and she has this question. Outside of Ender's Game, which hits November 1st, which we haven't talked about yet, and I've seen only some promotional stills from it, but I'm very... Have you read the book? Are you a fan of the book, Ender?
I have, but I'm not a fan of the author.
Yeah, I know, but the book was great.
I feel like I'm going to have to take the book off my shelf and get rid of it. It's sad but true, but I really can't tolerate that author.
No, I mean I get it. I get that. Oh, no, I see it. I would never want us to jump up and down on your mission.
Thank you.
But I am excited about this movie, and I'm also excited about Star Trek, obviously, Into Darkness on May 17th. Amy from Peoria asks, what other movies in 2013 would be deserving of, as she says, Nerdist premiere day events?
Mm-hmm.
And that inspired me to ask you, my friend. I made a list of my top 13 between now and kind of the end of July, and I want to see if I've missed any.
So you think would be just through the summer, huh?
Yeah. And so Ender didn't enter my list because I don't, I'm barely getting through the end of the week. So
and Ender's coming out at next Thanksgiving anyway.
Right.
That's a long past.
Long past. Okay. So let me just give you my list in chronological order. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Now, some of these are not. So I actually, this is my list of top 13. Not all of these represent films that I will be there opening night. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. First one's coming up right away. Trance. We talked about the trailer last week. Very excited for Trance. I'll be there opening night on that one.
What about? Well, sorry, it's your list. You go ahead.
Yeah. The challenge with that is Upstream Color, which also comes out April 5th. That's on my list as well, and it's it's an opening weekend movie for me.
Okay.
All right. It's a Disaster, April 12th. It's not an opening night movie, but I'm very excited for that one. I think it's going to be worth seeing this summer. Then we get into the big ones, right? The latter half of April, we got Oblivion, definitely going to be there opening. I think that's going to be fun. Iron Man 3, very high on my list. Great Gatsby, May 10th. That's an opening weekend for me, maybe not opening night. Star Trek Into Darkness, as I mentioned to Sarmento and you on Facebook, I've fandangoed the first 8 shows. I want to make sure I get a full 21 hours of Star Trek in a row, opening day through the second day. I'm that excited about that movie. Obviously, we've got Now You See Me, May 31st. A magic/heist movie. Very excited about that. And then After Earth, June 7th. Man of Steel, another high one on my list. World War Z, June 21st. Hard to believe it's going to take till June to get that movie in theaters.
It sure is.
Sure is hard to believe. Pacific Rim, July 12th. Definitely not an opening night movie, but I'm excited to see it for the sheer spectacle of it. Insanity of it. And finally, I don't know how to, now that I've seen it, you may be talking about this one tonight, the Wolverine, the next Wolverine movie with Hugh Jackman on July 26th. I've seen the trailer. I will reserve judgment if you're going to talk about that one tonight.
Yeah, I'll chat just very briefly. Do you want me to talk about it now? Or?
No. I want you to say, did I miss anything on my list? Are there any in here that you are particularly excited about or you think should be just dumped?
There's absolutely some that you're missing.
You're a liar.
Well, Evil Dead.
That would not be on my list.
Oh, see, that's totally on my list.
Okay.
We're talking nerd geek out films, right? I don't know. I'd put that on my list.
Okay. All right. Evil Dead.
You mentioned Oblivion, right?
Okay. Yep.
And I think I think you did a good job in May. I think you hit all the big ones in there. Yeah, I would say The Hangover Part 3, but I think that because I kind of lost interest in Hangover 2, I think that the nerd geek out factor is kind of gone from that one for me.
That was exactly my thought. I had exactly that thought.
Yeah. In June, I think you hit the big ones. I think there's again, I think there's a little less interest in Monsters University for me now. I'm not so keen on the idea. It potentially could be, but I think it's not for me. World War Z, definitely. White House Down, I think that one looks a lot more exciting than what's the other current White House takeover movie that's out right now.
I pay so little attention to the White House movies. I did watch the White House Down trailer today that just came out this week.
It looks more interesting than the other one, the one that's out right now.
Channing Tatum, Jamie Foxx.
I'm glad that you skipped Lone Ranger, so that was very smart of you to skip that one. I'm certainly glad you skipped Grown Ups too. That definitely should not be mentioned ever. Wolverine is definitely, I think, will be a fun one. I'm really kind of hoping it's going to be. There's in August, Elysium, I think, is another big one that you missed.
Didn't go. I told you I didn't do August.
It's part of the summer, though. I
said I went through the end of July.
I know. I'm reprimanding you for not having gone into August, because August is it's going to be a great August. And
it's going to be a great August.
Two big reasons.
Okay, Elysium.
It's Neil Blomkamp's new movie. He did District
9, right?
Years ago. It's a great script. It's going to be a really fun movie. I'm very excited about it. And then the other one that's exciting that has just been moved to August. I think. Oh,
Jurassic Park 3D.
No, it was close. It's part 3 of the Cornetto, the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, The World's End, has now been moved to August. So that, for me, is the big exciting thing that's happening.
We're going to have to do that one right away, aren't we? Just so we can finish that series.
Absolutely.
All right.
Can't wait.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a good thing. So if you have anything else, people of Earth, if you are we missing any that you're really excited about that we are not talking about? Because you can bet we'll talk a lot more about all of these movies as we get through the summer. And I know a couple of these are going to end up on our film board list. So head over to thenextreel.com/filmboard and you can find out what the gang is going to be up to there. I also have a request from another listener. Friend of the show, Kurt, from Seattle. We were chatting about this whole thing, and he said, sometimes I go to the website and I want to listen to a show, and it's a movie I haven't seen yet, and so I just kind of put it off and think, well, I'm not gonna. I'll when I see the movie, I'll listen to the show, and that, of course, is that doesn't happen. And I wonder if he's not alone. What do you think? Do you think he's alone? I don't think he's alone.
I don't know.
And so his request was that we publish at some portion, at least, of our upcoming schedule, so that you can see, apart from listening this week, and we'll tell you what's coming next week.
Isn't that enough? Don't people have all the spare time to watch a movie once a week?
Not if we're like Kurt, who doesn't actually listen to the show every week. Say he missed Moon last week and didn't know that tonight was going to be Gattaca. Because we're so secretive. So that was a request, and I think we should publish maybe the next the next month.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Well, I'm just saying it's out there.
It's out there. Okay.
All right. Let's see what else we have going on. But let's talk about some trailers. Do you have anything else?
Nope. I think that's it.
All right. Looking forward to a good summer. Let's hear what you're going to talk about, your trailer.
Well, you kind of already mentioned it. I think the new trailer for the Wolverine looks pretty exciting. I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do with this. I thought the previous Wolverine movie, which was just Wolverine, was not really good. In fact, it was really quite bad. Not just as a story, but the effects, everything about it really just didn't work at all. And I was really disappointed in it because I've never been an X-Men comic book follower, but I've enjoyed the X-Men movies. I really enjoyed the Wolverine character and what they were doing with him. I think Hugh Jackman plays that character really well. I think he seemed to, like the first time I saw him, it just seemed like he captured the essence of what everyone always told me what Wolverine was all about. I really enjoyed it. Then that Wolverine movie came out, which is horrible. But now he's back with The Wolverine. So the sequel, instead of Wolverine 2, it's Wolverine, and now it's The Wolverine. He's back. This was the one that Darren Aronofsky was going to direct for a little bit, but now James Mangold ended up being the one who directed it, which is kind of exciting. He did 3:10 to Yuma. He did Copland, Walk the Line, some great movies that I really enjoy. And after watching the trailer, I got to say, I have some high hopes for this. I think it's going to be a very interesting story. Wolverine goes to Japan, finds a person from his past that he had saved who seems to actually be an enemy and alters Wolverine's whatever it is that makes him so he can heal himself and essentially keeps him living forever. He alters that, and now Wolverine can be hurt. And I don't know. But
it was like by request, like Wolverine. It's like the curse of, oh my God, you're the curse of awesome, and now we're gonna try and get rid of the awesome and make you not awesome.
It's the curse of living forever. I mean, you lose everyone you love.
Whatever.
That's why vampires are also depressed.
I have such trouble with that. And that's a problem. That is my central problem with this. And it's my central problem with any of the superhero movies that come out that are all about superhero angst. You know what? You are awesome. You have adamantium bones and blades that come out of your fist, and you live forever. So go skiing and do something crazy, right? So get over yourself. Go save some people, fight some crime, find a villain, and it can't be your inner demons.
Wow, you're just just want to see all surfacey kind of just simple story.
That's why I get into it. That's why I am into these kinds of movies. And so, I'm sure I'll probably like it, but there'll always be that inner 12-year-old that just wants to watch him beat up somebody who is a master villain. That's why I cannot wait. I think that's one of the reasons I love the Iron Man series so much, is because there is some inner demon stuff, but mostly he's just really cool at building stuff that beats people up.
This new one looks pretty angsty.
It's angsty, but there is a supervillain.
Yeah.
Please, dude, supervillain.
All right. What's your trailer?
We're gearing up for are we talking about this? We're not doing the series yet, but we've got a series coming up where we're going to be talking about movies about magic. And I've already done a trailer. I've done the Burt Wonderstone. We talked about the Burt Wonderstone trailer coming up. Well, the trailer came out this week that I had never seen, and I thought it was quite charming. It strikes me as a vastly lower budget version of Burt Wonderstone, but in that kind of vein, Desperate Acts of Magic. It comes out May 3rd. And it is the story of a man who's fired from his job to become a magician, and it's the what he goes through to learn to be a magician, and the politics of magic, and it looks like a really sort of a fun comedy that I think it's not quite as big as Now You See Me, and so it's got a lot of charm and a little bit of romance as he goes head to head with a female street magician who is vastly superior to his own and to his own magic. So,
have you poked around on their website?
I just closed it as you were talking about what I was thinking. So
desperateactsofmagic.com, and it's interesting because it's nice to see how filmmakers nowadays are finding ways to get their projects out there. They're not necessarily relying on a distributor. This is a perfect example. These are people who are wanting to travel around the country and four-wall the theater, basically renting theaters and get it into theaters where people can watch it. So it's great that they're really pushing this out there.
I think it is too. It's got that indie spirit. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and it's got a nice little wackiness to it.
It just got a lot of wackiness. So looks good. So Desperate Acts of Magic, The Wolverine. Lots of other things we're excited about this week, but definitely those. Did you want to talk about the Stephen King thing?
Nope.
Check that out. All right. I'm going to post a Stephen King thing on Facebook, so everybody should go check that out. Facebook.com/thenextreel for the Stephen King thing.
Excellent.
It's from an Australian, so deal with that.
I love that. It's exciting.
Right? Shall we talk about this the movie tonight?
Let's.
Seems like you're busy. Are you typing up something? A report? Budget?
I was. I am budgeting right now. Absolutely. That's what I do when I'm bored. I'm going to budget. I'm going to do some more budgeting.
Yeah, what a horrible life.
I don't get enough of that in my life. That's terrible.
We're doing Gattaca tonight.
Yeah. It's a little sad. We're already at the end of our original sci-fi series.
Man, that was a short run.
It really was. Way too short.
Okay. So we're going to talk more about what original sci-fi means to you later. But this movie, I think, did you add this to our list or was this one of mine? I think it was you.
We just kind of threw a bunch out there. I don't remember who came up with this.
Well, I'm very excited about this movie. It's funny to watch this movie after. I think mostly after Dark City and Moon, because this has such an interesting vibe, kind of a visual vibe, in that sort of spiritual trilogy. You know what I'm saying?
In a way, all four of them have something interesting to talk about and how they relate to what it means to be a person.
Well, see, now the reason I mentioned those two is because I've already forgotten what the other one was. What are we talking about?
Dark City.
I said Dark City. Dark City and Moon.
And Sunshine.
Sunshine. Oh, totally. I absolutely would have added that one in.
There you go.
That was a great movie. We should do that.
We should. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so tell me what you think about this movie. Gattaca.
This was a fascinating film, and I remember when I saw the trailer, I instantly was hooked. The trailer just had a vibe to it that looked like a really unique vision of a science fiction story. It didn't have to be out in space. It was really kind of the nature of fictional science and what it means to be a society that essentially is modifying children before they're born, using their DNA to essentially create the perfect version of what the parents want their child to be, so that the kid gets the best hereditary traits of their parents. And it creates this society where you have all these perfect people, and then you have another class of people, you could almost say, of people who are born traditional ways, where their parents didn't want to go through this genetic diagnosis process. And those children are called invalids once they're born, because they are deemed just imperfect by the system. And what I find so fascinating about this film is it doesn't seem far from where we are. Not to say that I think we're headed in that direction, but it just seems like this is something where I think we probably have a lot of this technology already, and just a little more development, we could probably end up in this system. And if people aren't careful, we could easily fall into this sort of, the way that the society is structured. And it's frightening. And that's what I found so fascinating about this film, is it just took a simple fictional scientific idea and turned it into a fascinating story about what people are and what it means to be, a person with good genes versus a person with maybe some faults in their genes, and what does the human spirit come from, and the drive to do something and to achieve, can that be something that is genetically built into a person? And I was mesmerized when I first saw this film with all of these ideas it was presenting. And watching it again, I think Andrew Niccol, who wrote and directed this film, really came up with an absolutely fantastic science fiction film that is not necessarily too far in the future, but really looks at a kind of a frightening dystopian world. I don't know if dystopian is really the right word, but it could be, depending on how you're looking at exactly what this world is doing and how these classes are being created and what it means to society. I really find it a fascinating film.
I think I agree with you. And, there's, I think, a lot to love about what the movie challenges. And I think particularly because it's so, the topic is so close to scientific reality, or at least our perception of scientific reality. It's in a way, and I think, there was a fantastic quote. David Kirby is a bioethicist, or at least he was a bioethicist at DePauw.edu, and wrote a paper in 2000 on the bioethics of Gattaca. And in it, his case is, look, there is a lot that goes on in gene therapy that's really, really good. But unfortunately, one of the things that we know about science fiction, and typically science fiction and horror, is that what people see in the movies, they tend to believe, or form their kind of philosophical belief structure around in reality. And his case is, and he writes a lengthy discussion about Gattaca's presentation of this stuff, is that, it actually does a disservice to the science, because it pushes such a sort of horrific end to, which is only one of many possible ends based on where we are in the technology right now.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was him or somebody else. Actually, I think it was somebody else. It was in a review when the film came out in the journal Natural Genetics. Molecular biologist Lee M. Silver said that all geneticists should see this film, if for no other reason than to understand the perception of our trade held by so many of the public at large. Which is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's like this is what people think that these geneticists are really doing.
Right. And I think that ends up being sort of a challenge that the film, that's not the purpose of the film. That's not why, the film is out there to present a thriller and a drama, or around this world based on sort of near science. And I think they end up My perspective is I think it's probably a good thing to address some of these possible horizons in film. And I think that's kind of the cultural role of film. And I think Gattaca is one of those examples that does it, really well and pushes just the right envelope.
Well, and that's what good science fiction has always been, is it takes what's out there and it looks at what it could become. That's kind of the nature of a lot of these great sci-fi stories that had been around for the last 100 years. You get these really interesting looks at something that's not too far from where we are, but if we go in that direction a little, and we just kind of, keep nudging in that direction, next thing we know, we could be in this world if we're not careful. That's what I really enjoy about these science fiction films, is it's not that far off. And, I understand these geneticists getting kind of up in arms that, these people don't know what they're talking about. This isn't what it's all about. It's like, well, you're missing the point if that's what you're attacking the film for. The film isn't necessarily stating that this is what geneticists are doing or working toward, but it's an idea. And it's an idea that's, in a way, it's almost looking at eugenics and all of that sort of thing. It's just looking at the modification of a people to kind of breed out imperfections and the morality of that.
Right. I was just going to say, it really is. It's looking at this one sort of philosophical ideal around behavioral sort of eugenics, and that is the role of the film, and I think that's fascinating. And Sony, they went to great lengths to. Knowing that this would be a film that pushed a lot of buttons, they went to great lengths to have just the right sort of involvement from the science community. They had a scientist on board to help them, make sure that the message was presented as a drama, and they still ended up running ads in the USA Today, New York Times, Washington Post, and the LA Times, full-page Gattaca ads, just posters from Gattaca saying "Children made to order." So, in no way sticking the proverbial foot in their collective mouths. It's it still ends up being I think a fantastic tribute to near science, and that is one of the things I was going to say. As you brought up this idea of the role of science fiction, and I think the role of original science fiction is that it pushes us to think about the things that are right here in front of us and make connections to the things that we have yet to discover or yet to implement. But it is in a way the most sort of tangible. And that, I think, is what connects me to this film in so many ways. And it also is what disconnects me to the film, I think, in a couple of areas that I find that I don't need in terms of the structure of the film. And I was surprised because I didn't remember these elements that I didn't really need.
Like?
Or I would need more of, right? So, so his birth, right? The backstory of his birth. And let me take a step back. When you just listen to the voiceover, there are so few films where I like the voiceover, right?
Yeah.
I love the voiceover in this film. I love the writing in this film. I think this is this film. It's like music. I mean, the language. Maybe it's the combination of language and Ethan Hawke's kind of sort of beatnik soliloquy kind of a thing that he's got going on there. It is. There are pieces of language in this film that are close to Hemingway, and I think I find it fascinating to watch it as a science fiction film when it feels like such a throwback to other great literature. So I'll get more to that in a minute. I love the parental thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that exists, and I love that it presents this. Presents the angle of judgment about the parents. It says, you know what, we had this faith child, and that's the whole thing. If you haven't seen the movie in a while, you remember that Ethan Hawke his character is born. He's one of the love babies he's born without any genetic modification, and as such, once they type him as he is born, they realize that he's got a potential heart condition. And he's gonna die at 30, whatever.
Right.
Okay. So then they go back to have a second child, and they do it the way you're supposed to do it in this sort of near future society, where they do all the genetic tests, and they go ahead and the doctor goes in and says, well, here's kind of what we're planning for your baby, and here are the choices you can make. And they say, we just want the diseases fixed. We want to leave some things up to chance. And he says, well, really? You sure you want to do that? Because everyone else is doing it this way. Don't you want to make sure your child is up to that level? And I, as a parent, that hits me straight in the chest every single time, right?
Yeah.
When you think of accommodations that you make in the classroom, what does it take to make sure that your child is within the standard deviation of normal, right?
Right.
And here we are in an example of this. I think what this film paints is great example of what that looks like. So far I'm totally in. I love the relationship of the brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and I really love the swimming bit. They have this little running competition, and that sets us up for, even if you're genetically, quote, genetically inferior, or in the film's parlance, invalid,
Mm-hmm.
you still can swim a hell of a long way.
Right.
But then the movie takes this awesome turn, and we see that Ethan Hawke is moving into this other world, and then we realize that there's, at least for me, I feel like I've moved on from that story. It was great foundational material for my believing in this universe that they've set up, and now I've moved on, and I hadn't thought about the fact that he had a brother
Mm-hmm.
in forever, and then it turns out to be the cop.
Right.
Right? And that felt just a touch on the nose for me. And yet, to throw back to Hemingway, that this whole thing, the whole search for the brother, the brother's whole cause was, you know what, I need a rematch.
Yeah.
Somehow that made it a little bit more palatable. But overall, that sort of end sequence, I absolutely didn't need that. What I needed to know is resolve the fact that Ethan Hawke gets to go to space or not. Is he going to get caught? That's what I want to know.
Right.
Anything else is a giant wet tank.
Huh. I've never really thought about it that way. I can totally see how you're getting there, though. It's never been a problem for me. I don't think, though. I don't have a problem with the brother coming back. I didn't see it as on the nose, meaning, something that's just way too obvious. It did seem awfully coincidental, except I kind of liked the way that they played it. I don't know. It's just because the way that he was reacting, it was an interesting way. And whether you thought he was the brother or, had this weird curiosity about really kind of what was going on, I'm not sure. The reveal was interesting. And
why?
You're right.
Now, why did you say the reveal was interesting? What was interesting about it?
I don't know. I guess just the way that they revealed it, it didn't feel like they were trying to make it like a big dun 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 sort of moment. It just kind of, the way that he calls his name out. As the investigating, the cop in charge of the investigation, it's like he should have known the name because he knew the person who they were chasing. He knew the name of that invalid that they caught the DNA from.
You're talking about the alley chase, right?
Right. When he comes out and they're hiding in the alley, and he looks down the alley and he senses that he's there, and he calls out his name, Vincent. It's played in a way where you kind of get this sense that it's a brother calling to his other brother. Like, I kind of had that sense without him revealing in any way to anyone else that was the case, because just saying Vincent, that's the name of the person they're in pursuit of. There's nothing strange about him calling out the name Vincent. So for me, I liked the way they did that, because it really kind of hinted to me, oh yeah, that's the brother, because I don't know, the way he called out, it just seemed like a brotherly way or something. But I just kind of had that. I liked the way they dealt with that, rather than making it so, no, I'm your brother, sort of, big reveal sort of, moment.
Yeah,
So.
I think in that respect, when you look at the final swim, when he has what I sort of ascribe to the Incredible Hulk moment.
Yeah.
This is, my secret. I'm always angry. That's the secret. I didn't save any for the trip back.
That's
right. When they have that moment, it makes that sort of the brotherly chase element a little bit more intimate, right? Yeah. Familial, I should say. And yet, he yelled the name in the alley. There was, I think each character had one other moment in their respective storylines where they were asking an angle on a particular question about the other. Like, did you catch his name? When Hawke's character says, did you catch his name? And you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe they do know each other. Right. And yet it comes up and it's sort of largely irrelevant to what I really wanted to know. And I'd never seen that as a shortcoming in the film before. And now it just sort of stuck out at me. Huh. I know I belabored it way too long.
But I will say there is something every time I watch this where by the time I hit the third act, and I'm kind of anticipating the trip to space and is he gonna get caught or not, I do feel like there's something that's kind of a little hitch in the third act that does bog it down a little bit. And I didn't really examine it too much when I watched it this time. I just kind of was just invested in the film. I didn't really check it, but I mean maybe that is what it was.
Well, it certainly is for me. It represents where, like you say, it's that hitch that just gets in the way of resolution for me.
Yeah,
I'm already up there. I mean, emotionally, I'm already ready. I'm excited about the chase.
Yeah,
and what gets in the way of the chase is the brother, and not in a dramatic obstacle fashion.
Right. The brother played by Lauren Dean, who's he was one of those guys who kind of seemed to pop out of nowhere. You look at his filmography, he's actually been in a lot of stuff from the late 80s through 2011. He seemed like a guy who seemed like close to kind of popping, and then he just kind of always, it seems like he's just kind of a supporting actor sort of guy. But he was Joe in Say Anything. I never caught that. I'm gonna have to watch Say Anything again.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
I think that's hilarious.
Oh, makes me think of that song.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you even think it?
Don't you even think it? Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
That's been a long time. Nice catch.
Yeah, little tidbit of trivia for you.
Man, there's a lot of DNA in this movie. Did you catch all the DNA?
Yes.
A lot of DNA in this movie.
There definitely is.
I love them some DNA. All the letters. Adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. Is that right? I'm doing that from memory.
That's probably, yeah.
The core, is it elements? Would you call them the core elements of DNA?
They're the four DNA nitrogenous bases.
Nitrogenous? That sounds like a soap.
Not Neutrogena.
Anytime.
These are nitrogenous.
The Neutrogena bases of DNA. Anytime you see the letter A, C, T,
G,
and G in the film, they're set apart in either a different font, a different color, and a slightly different something. Some way to set the case apart so that we're talking DNA in Gattaca. That's what you need to know. It's
only in the titles. It's not through the whole film, is it?
Well, apparently it's in the whole film. And when you look at it when their names like show up on the little screen, they're slightly lower than baseline.
Interesting.
Yeah, they make a big point about pointing out the staircase
like
the double helix.
Yeah.
I don't know. That may be a little bit of a stretch for me.
But yeah, I liked all that. In fact, that's something that I think is definitely worth talking about with this film is the look of it.
Yeah,
I love the future. It's like the past future sort of look, and this is something that actually they brought up in Sunshine as well. I don't think we discussed it, but the production designer of Sunshine said, I think he coined it like the 50-year rule or something like that, where anytime you're in a particular year, you can really have things going back at least 50 years before that, and it still is around. Like if you look at where we are today, you're still going to have people driving cars from the 60s,
right,
70s, 80s, 90s. You know, it's all that stuff is still out there. People still, you know, have some crazy clothes that they throw on every now and then. The looks, the buildings, it's all there. And so the way that they incorporated like the Marin County Civic Center building that Frank Lloyd Wright designed in 1960, and the
Otis,
right? Yeah. The Otis College of Art and Design,
1918.
Yeah, they incorporated a lot of really fascinating architectural buildings to make them look futuristic. Even the cars were kind of these based on these 60s cars. And so I really like the way they did that. And it, you know, I mean, it obviously did a great job for, I don't know if it's Jan Rolfs and Nancy Nye, the two, production designer and set decorator for this film, but they were nominated for an Academy Award for it, their work, which, you know, I love watching this film because of the look. It's just, I mean, that's one of the reasons that I enjoy it, is it just looks so unique. And I love that they found it in stuff that's out there right now.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. And the other thing I want to make note of is the costume design.
Yeah.
Right. This sort of the film noir kind of a costume design, particularly for the men. This sort of an androgynous suit style in Uma Thurman. I think that was such an interesting choice, and it doesn't strike you as interesting until they're all shot into space wearing their suits.
Yeah, right.
Right. At first, it's just a style choice, right? And then they're making now they're making a statement.
Yeah.
When you can wear a suit to space, now you're making a statement.
Well, and it's interesting that this group, the Valids, all of these people who are able to work at Gattaca, which in the context of the film is the name of the company that's doing all these space missions.
Mm-hmm.
All of those people are always dressed in these fancy suits and all that sort of stuff. And then you look at the invalids like Ernest Borgnine, who kind of is the head of the janitorial crew cleaning up Gattaca. And they have their own kind of just low-end outfits, the kind of the janitorial, you know, the grubby clothes. So it's interesting. It's not a drastic difference between the two, but it's enough of a difference where it's clear that there's that delineation between those groups.
It works. I think it works exceptionally well in this movie, in particular when you talk about the production design. Everything looks like it fits.
Yep.
It just fits, and this is another one of those incredibly visual films. The locations that they found, we've already named two of them. The other, when Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke are having their conversation in the it's that Los Angeles cistern, right? The runoff.
Yeah.
What do they call it? It's a ditch. It's essentially a gorgeous Art Deco ditch. In Los Angeles, and they're standing in it having a conversation about space and the framing of this sequence, essentially this sort of very wide two-shot of these characters looking up on a very bright day with this giant scaffold over them of just concrete structure. It really is. It just sort of takes your breath away.
Yeah, it does.
It is an extremely bold, block-heavy production design, and as a result of this sort of 1950s postmodernist, is that what it was then? Anyway,
I don't know.
This style, it's really moving.
And then taking that and finding the right way to shoot it, so it has kind of this tech noir sort of feel. You know, it's kind of bold in its monotonous look, right? It's got some very interesting, strong, solid colors throughout. You know, just the way that you see the lights, like that when he's walking into the rocket, as I recall, it's like that kind of that light up tube almost with kind of the lines on the wall, and just as he's walking, it's just this kind of this glow, this bluish glow on everything. And I don't know how you pronounce the DP's name. Is it Slavomir Itziak? That's my best guess.
And since you're the knowledge base of all things pronunciation.
That's right. He's Polish. He's been around since 45. He's done a lot of work with people like Krzysztof Kieslowski. He did Black Hawk Down for Ridley Scott. Unfortunately, he did King Arthur and Proof of Life. Poor guy. But he's done Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. And, he's a guy who's been around. He's done a lot of kind of these really kind of quiet Euro indie art house type of films and a lot of big Hollywood films. He really knows how to make a film look good. And I think Gattaca is just gorgeous from beginning to end.
This is, as I was watching it this evening, I'm thinking to myself, gosh, you know what? Yeah, one of the things that made The Artist so wonderful is this just that high contrast black and white. And this is one of those films that I think I could watch this in black and white, and I think it would have actually added to the film. It's one of those films that I think is that close to making that sort of bold of a style choice in terms of actual, cinematography.
Right. Yeah. That would have been interesting.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we want to talk about in this film?
Well, we should finish running down the cast. So we've mentioned Ethan Hawke.
We haven't talked about Uma.
Well,
we should talk about Uma.
And Ethan and Uma, this is the film where they met. This is the film where they ended up, falling in love and getting married. And I can't quite remember how long they were married, but for a good number of years before it ended. But this is where it all started.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those who are interested in Ethan and Uma,
it ended 2004.
Good. So there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Jude Law.
This was one of his first, he had been acting a few years before this, but this was kind of a breakout film for him in a couple years of some breakouts. This was one for him. Great performance in this film. I really like Jude Law. He's got this, he's the one who is kind of, has this deal with Ethan Hawke's character, Vincent. He's kind of trading his DNA samplings of blood and urine and eyelashes and skin. And it's just like the worst things that you'd want to be carrying around in baggies. He's got it all set for Ethan to be using to prove he is who he says he is. But Jude Law is doing all this because he had been in a car accident and broken his legs, and he's now paraplegic. And the bitterness that he has in his character, I find so fascinating, paired with his, it's almost a desire to get back at the society that essentially it's almost like he never introduced himself back to the society because he knows that they will instantly shut the door on him because he's no longer a perfect specimen anymore.
Yeah, it's a funny sort of parallel motivation for these two characters, right?
Absolutely.
This is one of those where his motivation to get back at society is to, essentially to prove them right.
Yeah.
And Ethan Hawke, his motivation is essentially to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
But they both want the exact same thing.
Yep.
And I think it makes for it's a perfect pairing.
And I love all the scenes between those two guys.
Yeah.
I think they work really well together. They play off each other nicely. And I just think Jude Law brings so much to the table. And you can see, watching an early Jude Law performance like this, you can see why he became Jude Law that he is today.
Alfie.
And yes, you bring that one up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What happened to Uma though? Seriously.
Yeah. Right.
If she's not working with Quentin Tarantino, it's like she just can't make a good movie anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know. She's one of those that is a little bit tricky to watch. I think maybe there's a good chance she's actually poisoned me with her portrayal of Poison Ivy. And I didn't mean that to be a play either. That movie was so repellent that I find it so hard to watch her in anything else, because I automatically think of that and then it's done.
Oh, that's too bad.
Kill Bill. I raves about Kill Bill. It's great. I enjoyed Kill Bill, but surely not for her.
Oh, I love her in it. I have a great time watching her. But I wish that she was in some more good stuff because, I enjoy watching her, and it's just she's not in enough stuff.
What about my super ex-girlfriend? What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Is
See,
that a hit?
that's something else that's just not good. She needs
Pulp
to be
Fiction.
in more good things.
Pulp Fiction.
That's good.
You know what it is? Maybe it's that it's that her style requires a certain austerity in performance.
Yeah.
I think that word for me keeps coming up when I think about Gattaca in particular. It's like every choice is made with this austere sensibility. What are we going to do? What choices are we going to make? Whether it's a performance choice, whether it's a production choice, whether it's a design choice, that really drills down to this sense of austerity or simplicity.
Yeah.
And as a result, I think I mean, just look at the desks, right? Look at the desks that these people work in.
Right.
It takes me back immediately to Christmas in July, right?
Yeah, and I think of Brazil. I think
and
of,
Brazil, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
those sorts of films, right? You got this future where it's just these workhouses, right?
And these are business people, right? These are supposedly the valids, the professionals. And what they do is they come sit down at a desk that doesn't actually have a desk. It's just a keyboard and a computer, and they type real hard all day.
Yep.
And there's just a guy, the boss, who just walks up and down and checks the work.
Yep.
And it is that desk, looking at the curved style of that desk and the simple chair and the simple, the simple framing around it. It is beautifully kind of just organic, and it just everything fits. And I think that, you look at Uma and her performance, and I actually don't find her, completely repellent in this film. And I think a lot of it is because of that austerity in her character. Like her choices are so, like her moves are so small, and appropriately so.
Yeah. No, and I think you're absolutely right. I think she does bring that to the table in this film, and it's a much more controlled performance for her than something like, Batman and Robin. I really enjoy that austerity that you're talking about in her. In this film, it really works for the type of people in this society, and she plays it well.
So does that Gore Vidal.
Gore Vidal is great as the director of the space program here. He's great. I love Xander Berkeley in this. I think he's great as this doctor with the son that he brings up a couple times. That it seems that there's got to be a reason he keeps bringing it up, and you find out at the end. It's nice.
And that's the story that I want resolved, right? And back to the brother thing, not to, again, belabor that, but that's the story that I really wanted, and it resolved so well. I loved the moment that they have at the end when it comes out that really he keeps bringing up the brother or the son, because the son also has a defect, and he knows that it's going to be so hard. And not only is Vincent an astronaut, but he's an invalid,
right?
And he's going to space.
He's somebody who can give hope to these other invalids or people with defects. Yeah. It's a great moment. Great moment.
Oh, it is a great moment.
Yeah.
And he's a great character to watch.
Yeah, I always enjoy Xander Berkeley, and he's got some really funny bits in this because of his role. It's like every time he's saying something, it's just sounding so awkward, but it makes me laugh. His stuff really makes me laugh in this.
When he's talking about, he tells Vincent that he has a fantastic equipment package as he's watching him do the urinalysis. No, really, I wish. There's a fantastic line. He says, "I wish my parents would have ordered something or equipment like that for me."
Yeah. So, he's like, you got to have humor when you're doing this. It's brilliant. He's good. Yeah. Elias Koteas is great. We've chatted about him before in some of Fincher's films. He's always fun to watch, and he brings an interesting vibe to a performance, and he does great as the father struggling with the idea of, choosing how he wants to have his second son after his first son, ends up with these conditions and everything. Blair Underwood randomly pops up as a geneticist, which is an odd little appearance.
Right, with a weird beard.
Yeah, he has a weird beard. I didn't even recognize him at first. I'm like, oh, that's Blair Underwood.
It's a beard of the future right there. Future beard.
Tony Shalhoub is great as kind of the creepy, what would you call him? Genetic dealer or something? Like black market gene dealer?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one who sets up this whole thing between Ethan Hawke's character and Jude Law's character. And it's just an interesting thing that totally would happen if society went this way. You would have these black market dealers trading in people's genetic elements, and it's the way that he plays it is just very straightforward. It's like he sees nothing wrong with it. That's his job. Very interesting. I always enjoy watching Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub, he's one of those top character actors. And I don't think I realized it until he brought it back to TV. Monk is just it's a fantastic character.
Yeah, really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been great in a lot of things.
He's
just
been
great.
really great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got, of course, Alan Arkin, who's always good. He plays the detective.
Not enough Alan Arkin in this movie.
There's hardly ever enough Alan Arkin.
Is there really ever enough Alan Arkin?
That's right. Everyone could use a little more Alan Arkin in their lives. And I think that's most everyone except the person that I missed in a very bit part. Maya Rudolph pops up as the delivery nurse when the kids are born.
That's exactly what I was just going to bring that up. I am trying to scrub to that moment because I didn't pick it up that she was in this until after I was looking at the credits.
Right.
That she's in this film and she's it's so funny. One of the other nurses was also. Gosh, who was it? Una Damon? Una Kim?
I don't know who that is.
She was the other nurse, and she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Boy, she sure has. Deep Rising, Deep Impact, the
right?
Truman Show.
Race.
Yeah. She was the lab tour guide, uncredited in Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally familiar.
So it is a great cast. A lot of great people in this film. And the person that we really haven't talked at all about is Andrew Niccol.
We have not. This is his first film.
This is his first film as director, writer-director. Actually, and then The Truman Show came out the next year, I guess, right? Yeah, Truman Show was 98. Yeah, I was thinking it was before this, but it's actually after this.
Right.
Which he wrote and produced, but Peter Weir directed. Yeah. But Andrew Niccol's from New Zealand. And I'm not quite sure how he broke into the scene, but this was his first film, and then he'd written The Truman Show, and that got out there. And then he directed Simone, which was a bomb. Lord of War, which is I really enjoy that movie. I don't think it did that well. And then
Lord of War was the Nicolas Cage, right?
Right.
I actually quite like that one.
Yeah,
and that was good.
It's pretty interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in that film. Also with Ethan Hawke as well. Mm-hmm. And then In Time, which you didn't care for too much, it had a lot of really interesting concepts, but it did kind of fall apart a little bit.
That was one I really, really wanted to love too.
Right. And then his new film just came out actually this weekend, The Host, the new Stephenie Meyer, or the new film based on Stephenie Meyer's latest new series.
This is one that I think I asked you the last series she came out with if I should care about it. Should I care about The Host?
I don't think so. My sense is that because if you look at Andrew Niccol's filmography of Gattaca, Simone, Lord of War, and In Time, the ones that he's actually directed, they haven't been making a lot of money. I'll get to Gattaca in a minute, but it was lost money. Simone didn't make much money. It made less than Gattaca. Lord of War did okay, and then In Time did better, but in no case did he hasn't even broken 40 million domestically for any of his budgets. Just not doing very well. Yeah. In Time, definitely, it came close to, it was about 175 worldwide. So, it made a little bit more, but his films have not been doing well. So my sense is that somebody said, look, let's get you on a big project where we can get your name back, making something good that makes a lot of money. And so there's The Host. Stephenie Meyer's new thing.
All right.
Get all those Twilight kids to go in and watch it. So, I hope it does well for him. I think he's a unique filmmaker that tells some really interesting stories. The Truman Show, I think, is a really fascinating film. I would like to see more of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he's, gosh, you're right about Sim 1. What a bomb! But the Truman Show, Gattaca, these were. I think more interesting kind of character stories than really anything that he's done since. Certainly In Time, doesn't quite get there.
It was close. The concept is really fascinating.
It is fascinating. Yeah.
The film didn't really get there.
That's going to be one that's going to be a great remake in 20 years.
There you go.
Somebody's going to do a great job of that movie.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. What else do you have on Gattaca? We should talk. Should we talk about the? Did you already? Should we talk about the budgets?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned it, and this is something that I think is interesting in light of completing our original sci-fi series here. Gattaca cost $36 million to make. Like I said, it grossed about 12.5 domestically. I don't have any figures on what it grossed internationally, but the consensus of it was that it was a box office failure. It only so based on those numbers, it lost about $221,000 per finished minute. So it didn't do very well for itself. And in the context of the original sci-fi films that we picked, Dark City, Sunshine, Moon, and Gattaca, Moon is the only one that actually shows a profit when you look at the figures. The rest are all bombs, and the profit for Moon is very small.
Right.
It looks like the total budget on that was $8.5 million. The total gross was $9.7. So it didn't make a ton of money. And I think this is what happens with original sci-fi. One, it doesn't seem to draw a lot of people for some strange reason. But two, it turns into something that because it's not making money, nobody wants to make a sequel out of it. Nobody wants to turn it into a spin-off TV series or anything like that. Gattaca actually came close. There was actual talk of a TV series happening from Gattaca, but it never ended up happening.
But that was fairly recently. Right?
Yeah,
that was in the late 2000s, right? I mean, that's
right.
that's a really good point. And so I wonder, what is it that makes, I mean, besides the fact that we're saying that these films, these are sort of, I don't know, how do you define that? Are they too aspirational for people to really wrap their heads around? Are they too?
I think it's just, I mean, when people think sci-fi, my sense is that people really want to get into a big, over-the-top, space spectacular, Star Wars style sci-fi. That's my sense, and maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, obviously,
I was going to say, I think you're exactly right. I think there is this. I think we're talking about popular sci-fi versus the sort of hard sci-fi, or sort of sci-fi for grown-ups.
Yeah, it's the genre film. People want the genre film. They hear sci-fi, they want what the genre film means. They don't want it to be a drama set in a science fiction world. I think that was one of the reasons that the Solaris remake with George Clooney that Steven Soderbergh did, I think that was a big failure because of that. People were going in expecting a big sci-fi film. They're expecting a George Clooney film, whatever it was they're expecting. They got this heavy drama that dealt with some pretty heady issues about the nature of man and the nature of the ones you loved and getting them back and all that sort of thing. It was a really fascinating film, as is the original, but it didn't do very well. People didn't want that. People wanted the next great shoot 'em up in space movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, waiting for the Millennium Falcon. Yeah, no, I can totally see that. And these, I think that's one of the things that stands out for at least these 4 movies that we've done, is that the story, with the exception, I think the exception of Sunshine, right, where they are specifically sending a bomb to the sun, really the stories you could move the elements of the story into a different setting, and it would still be a good story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I crazy there? I mean, you look at I mean, Gattaca certainly takes license with the genetic stuff, but we're talking about this is a Romeo and Juliet story. At its core, this is the haves and have-nots story, and this can happen anywhere.
Right.
And I think Niccol's execution of it here is made sort of more colorful as a result of the science fiction setting, but not exclusively because of it.
No, exactly. But that's what's great about this sort of science fiction film is it gives you a really unique palette to use to tell these thinking man stories about, challenging you to look at the nature of man, whether it's the nature of what it means to be a man, of a person based on your genetics, or what it means to be a unique individual in the world of cloning, like in Moon, or what is it like to, come face to face with what made you, knowing that, there's a potential end to everything that there is about us in Sunshine. How does that change your philosophies? Or Dark City, what is it that is the human soul? Can I take this person and put them into this person's life? Are they going to totally adapt to that? Or, is there something more to a person? In every case, there's a really interesting psychological look at what it means to be a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really fascinating in all of these cases. And the way that you can use the tools within science fiction to tell those stories, I think that's why it's an amazing genre. And I hope that more filmmakers will challenge themselves to make this sort of science fiction film. Not to say the others aren't great, and not to say that you can't look at those sorts of things in bigger, more bombastic, typical science fiction films. But I really like this type of science fiction film. I think there's a lot to it.
Well, I think that's you look at Moon and Gattaca in particular. I mean, these are films that, in so many ways, we take for granted the fact that it's. I mean, they tell us what time we're in. They tell us where we are, and the story is powerful enough, and the portrayal of these characters are powerful enough, and the sort of ideals that the film is setting out to convince us in one way or another. The ideal of the film is sort of the way it should be. It's strong enough that that we let go of the fact that there's no Millennium Falcon, and I think that's an important element. That in this film in particular, we don't go to space. Science fiction does not have to be about space. It doesn't, and yet it is still a powerful futurist sort of a portrayal, and the sparseness of the science, or I shouldn't say sparseness of the science, the sparseness of the fantasy elements, I think actually make it a stronger, more interesting film, particularly when you're talking about, digging into these ideas of identity. What is it that makes a person? I love how Gattaca handles that in that angle where, they're challenging, Ethan Hawke and Jude Law's characters are challenging the cultural ideal that identity is determined by, by data, right?
Mm-hmm.
What others think of data, and Moon very much, sort of idealizes this identity is inside out, and we get the again the Dark City identity is imprinting.
Mm-hmm.
It's what a fantastic set of films to put together.
Yeah, and I don't think either of us went in with the intention to even plan any sort of tie-in between these, other than they're great original science fiction films. But it really ended up being a fascinating quadrilogy, I guess, if you will, of films that really look at being human. So
wow, what a great film.
Yeah.
All right. So, what do you think? Are we wrapped up with the this year's series of original science fiction? You have a few more things.
No, I don't. I think we rattled through all of them pretty well. So yeah.
I think we need to revisit. This is another one that I think we need to revisit.
Absolutely.
In another way, in another time. But this has been great fun to revisit some of these films that I don't typically put in to watch all the time.
Yeah. And I would love to hear from our listeners. What are some of your favorite original science fiction films?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that I hate saying it because it sounds so it sounds so terrible. When a great original science fiction film does well, they seem to spawn sequels. And it makes it harder for us to pick, because I like something like RoboCop. I thought was a great science fiction film, but it definitely spawned some terrible sequels and spin-offs and stuff, and a soon to be a new version of RoboCop rolling out to theaters.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great science fiction films out there. Finding those ones that are standalone original, that's what we're looking for. So definitely hit us up on Facebook or send us an email or leave us a message. We'd love to hear.
Absolutely.
And what are your thoughts on these 4 films? We'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah. Gosh, well, I don't know. I keep in the back of my head, I keep thinking, how do we fit Blade Runner in? Part of me doesn't want to do Blade Runner because it's talk about on the nose.
Well, and also it's based on a book.
Well, that's a good point.
So it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit.
No, we can do a Philip K. Dick series.
We should. That's how we're going to get around it.
There you go.
All right. So next week, what?
Are we going to flick chart?
Oh yeah, no, we got to do that first. Yeah. All right. Oh, you know what we did? The other thing we didn't talk about is Esperanto.
I'm not sure what that is.
What?
Esperanto?
This is a fantastic bit of trivia that I uncovered.
Oh, really?
Andy. All right. So in Gattaca, anytime the voice comes over the loudspeaker,
right,
they're speaking Esperanto.
The
completely made up language in 1887 created by L.L. Zamenhof. That's right. It is the International Auxiliary Language. It is the most widely spoken, constructed international auxiliary language. Its name derives from Doctoro Esperanto, translates to one who hopes, the pseudonym under which L.L. Zamenhof published his first book detailing Esperanto, Una Libro, on July 26, 1887. It's an easy-to-learn, politically neutral language that transcends nationality and would foster peace and international understanding between people with different regional and or national languages. And if you speak Esperanto, you're an Esperantist.
That's fantastic. What a great little bit of trivia.
Right?
See, that's the sort of thing that I would throw out there, but no,
I
totally win this one.
Man, that's awesome. That's never a me thing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'd never given Esperanto a whole lot of thing. I think there was a gosh. Well, there's always stories about somebody who teaches themselves Esperanto. You read the book Una Libro now, Unua Libro. But now I want to be an Esperantist.
You should.
All right, let's flip chart. Next week I'll be an Esperanto. I'm an aspirational Esperantist.
There you go. Woo! All right, that's a good Twitter handle.
By the time you type it out, there are no more characters left.
That's right. All right, here we go. Gattaca or Cloud Atlas?
Oh, well, I would go Gattaca. I know. I think you probably
too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Gattaca or Zero Dark 30?
Zero Dark 30.
Absolutely. Gattaca or Adaptation? Now, here I'll go Adaptation.
I was going to say Adaptation.
All right, good. Gattaca or The Bourne Supremacy?
Gattaca.
Okay.
Are you giving in on that one?
No.
Okay.
That's my least favorite of the Bourne movies.
Yeah, exactly.
So Gattaca or Sunshine?
Sunshine.
Yeah. There you go, number 35.
Did we agreed on every single one of those?
I think we did. I think that's a first.
Man.
Wow. That's why
that's not an entertaining thing to listen to.
It's in the DNA, man. DNA.
Okay, so next week we're changing. What'd you say is 35?
35.
All
35
right.
out of 80. Yep.
Next week we are, man, are we changing things up?
We really are. We're jumping back in time a little bit, hitting the 70s, right? 1976.
I am very excited for this. I'm doing, I got on the Netflix, I got the 3-hour documentary, A Decade Under the Influence. Have you seen this?
Oh, I love it.
I haven't watched it yet. It just came today, but I'm very excited about it.
Fantastic documentary.
Comes in 3 parts. It was done by Ted Demme and Richard LaGravenese, who stepped in because Ted Demme died during the epic production of this thing. And so I'm talking about covering some of the great films that we're going to be talking about over the next month as we jump into 1976. And we're going to kick it off with Marathon Man.
Yeah, that's right. Marathon Man. Looking forward to it. It was a great year for film. There's just so many great films that year. It was all really kind of hard to slim it down. We're going to be hitting, I guess, 5 films, right?
Yeah.
One of them. The last one will be kind of a crossover to a new series.
Yes.
But that's all we'll tease with.
That's all we'll tease with until we figure out how much we're going to.
That's right.
About. Very excited to talk about Marathon Man next week. Andy, I hope you have a great week.
I hope you have a great week.
I'm gonna because you said that, I'm gonna go have a great week.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I am too.
Promise?
I promise. Cross my heart and hope to die. Stick a needle in my eye. Not really.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.